Hello and welcome to this Project in a Box video. This is part 6 and the last part of the series looking at using the piabx file types in detail, and in this session we're going to be looking at personalizing the piabx files using the browser. So here we are in the browser, and obviously to make any changes to the file tool we'll have to check it out. But just before we start to do that, we just want to talk about the locking of sections and piabx files in general. As we covered in the last session, session 5, when looking at editing with the viewer, there is a lock that can be applied by the person that created the template onto that file, which can either not allow any changes at all, or can not allow changes to particular sections of the template. So we need to find the right sort of template to work on. So the blank template, which is one we can add to any document in the system, comes like that. It comes unprotected, so you can make any changes you want to. So the first thing we're going to do is we are just going to add one of those into here, so that we can, from the template library, blank file like that. So here's our blank piabx template, and we can check that out now. And so this comes completely unlocked. All the sections are unlocked. We can delete anything we want to, we can add anything new we want to, we can change any of the sections that we want to. We'll have a look at this first, then we're going to have a look at one which has got some locked sections in it. So when it comes to working on either the sections, they're the tabs in this case here, or the items, we need to be in the right location, and most of what we're going to be doing is going to be done from this cog up here, which only appears when you have the section, when you have the file checked out. Some common new items, when you have a section that's unlocked, it'll show you add new item at the bottom here, and that will create a copy of the item that's above. And that's a good way of indicating here when you've got a section which is unlocked, because that will show. If your section is locked, that will not show. So let's work on the sections first. So we can take the current section and create a copy of it if we want to, by going section and duplicate section. That will be exactly the same as the prior section, but without a name. It'll have a blank name. And if we come to one that's a bit more complicated, like the reference details here, and duplicate section, we can see that has those properties there. They're not populated because that act is done during the actual checkout, but next time we checked it out, we'd see that content being populated as well. So duplicating an existing section and then editing it is a really easy way of going. And quite common that people might want to do that. For example, if you wanted to have a project plan and have a number of work packages set up within it, you could just duplicate a work packages section again and again and add the further details to that. Most people have those as separate documents, but if it's a small project, you might want it all in one document, and you can therefore do that. Deleting sections. So if we want to find a section here that we don't want anymore, we can just come to section and delete section, and that's taken away. So that's all pretty straightforward. We can add new completely blank ones if we want to by going section and append section. We get one at the end here which has got a blank. The standard blank section has one text field in it, which is a maximized text field. And you can also reorder them if you want to. So if we want this new interesting one to go back up towards the top of the document, because of course when we're in edit mode here we see them as tabs, but when we go to print or print preview or view them, they're going to be shown down the page in order of these sections. So we could move the item up like that. Again, move section left, that's what we're after, not item but section, and we can see that change in the order there. So all that's fairly straightforward on the section front. Then we come to the sort of nitty-gritty of the items which sit within that section. So the most common thing we often want to do is to add a new item, hence the little link at the bottom here. and if we click on add item, it adds an identical item to the one above. Whatever that item might be, the next one will be identical. If we want to make changes to that item then, so it's not just another text field, we want to give it a title or something like that, we click into it, we come to the cog up here and we do item and then edit item properties, and here we can see the form which allows us to work on those properties. So we've got, just like in session 5 when we looked at it on the viewer app, we've got the same list of things here. So if we change this to something which is obviously different, like an image, we can see that's now using an image type, and therefore if I add new item below, we get another image type below. And obviously when you select the particular item, oh, that's not what I want to do. When you've got that particular item selected and come in and change them again to whatever you want to, or move them up and down, or of course append item, we'll add a new item in at the bottom. It's essentially the same as the add item link here. We've got delete item obviously, so we can take one out as well. So we're simply adding the items or taking them away, or moving them around, moving them up and down the section, and we can also change them to be the ones that we want them to be. We're going to have a look in a second at some different ones, but just before that I wanted to point out about selecting items which are not easy to otherwise find. So static text, for example, when you're in edit mode and the section is unlocked, you'll see this select link next to your static text, because it's the only way that allows you to actually select that item, so that when you come to edit the item's properties, you can then find it to change its static text or change the type of it or whatever it is that you want to do to it. But otherwise you've got no way of actually selecting that item. We don't offer the full list of items in a section, or all items, which is offered on the viewer. Just in principle, we have this approach where all the functionality is always available in the app for richer users, and then the core things that are done most commonly is available in the browser. So we're not doing the sort of deep creation of a new template here. That would be done in the viewer app. Here we're doing the typical workings that you would need to do as you work through a file and perhaps extend it in general use in a live project. So we might customize the guidance here to say something different like that, and then that's obviously going to appear here in that text for this file going forwards. So let's have a look at some of the different types of items that we can have. So let's take this top one and change it around a bit. So we've got static text, we've seen images, and obviously live text. We have a list item, and list item allows us to define a number of entries that we want people to be able to pick from the list. So we can go like this. We just separate them all with a line break, and they can be numbers or letters or text like that. And so now we can see we've got that pick list. If you want the first entry to be blank, you have a blank line at the top of your list of entries, and then people can pull down to pick up the other items. Otherwise, it'll start with the first item in the list pre-picked. So if you're doing a yes/no type answer, you can choose whether it's going to be no by default or yes by default, or have a blank and then they pick yes or no. Obviously, as that item is the currently selected one, when we come back up to here and do item edit properties, we can change that item, and you'll notice obviously when we go away from the actual file itself, the editable surface where we might be entering data, and come into this edit mode, the edit mode replaces the overall file. It's not a hover box that appears on top. You're in one mode or the other, and these editing of sections and items are all coloured like this, so that you can see distinctly that you're in a different sort of area of the application. You have the ability to set up the positioning of these items and how they're laid out as well. So this is a 1-row pick list and it's 0 columns. That means it's infinitely wide. There is a standard maximum width set within these files, and that will take it to that. So you can change all these things if you want to make it look a bit more natural. You might want, for example, your pick list to look more like that to match the size of the entries, not a full width one. So static text we've seen, numbers, we've got reals and integers, we've got Boolean, which is the tick box, so you can tick something on or off. So for example there, if you change that to Boolean, you might give this item a display name that says something like is it approved, ? Like that, and then you'll get that item, so you can then tick it. So that's a very different sort of thing. You've got either a tick or you don't have a tick. That will be displayed all the way through the system when you do previews and prints, etc. But we're not collecting anything richer out of that area. Item properties, so we've got date here as well. So if we come to date, and obviously with something like dates and numbers as well, we may well want to use a display format for those. We'll get a standard date picker which allows us to pick that, but when it comes to displaying that in the prints and the print previews, we can force our own display format on it. So we might prefer to have something like that. That might be our preferred format. We'll obviously get our date picker. We can choose the particular date we want. Like I say, the date here, when you're entering it, is sort of dealt with programmatically. It's when you preview and print it that the format applies to it. I think that's probably most of the ones that I wanted to look at. I guess there's one other which is variable. So we have variables which are held in the file, which are injected from the system when you edit the file, and they can be projected onto the face of the file, and we can see a load of those here. There's text fed forward from a previous file, which was exported as a variable, held as a property in the system, re-injected as a variable into this file. And we've got a number of other properties held at a system level, like status and descriptions and project codes, etc., that have been brought through into this file and shown to us. Now here they're all shown on one tab at the end, the reference details tab, but you can, if you want to, mix and match them through the rest of the body of the file. So you can have a description or a piece of text brought forward and put into another place in another file. These though are not editable, so they are brought forward as a fixed thing, and you can see these fields here are grayed out. You can see the content. You could grab the content and copy it, but you cannot edit it here. So they are treated slightly differently. You will need the property to be injected as a variable into this file, and the setting up of all that is done using the viewer. So here we are we're consuming some of that information, and this isn't the sort of stuff you normally change in an operational sense within a file. It's the sort of thing you change in a template usually, hence it's in the viewer, not here in the browser tool. Really the reason that variable has been left here is just for a completeness sense. In practice it's very unlikely anybody's going to try and set up variable types in here, like I say, because of the complexity of getting the data through and in, and that's not normally under your control at this point. So those are the list of types that you can have on your item. There's a good mix and match of those that enable you to collect most things. The thing we haven't talked about yet is tables, so we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to inject a table into here, and we're going to then we're going to go and look at an existing table in another file and see how that can be edited as well. So we're not, a table is different to an item. So we've got a separate menu for tables, and I can do add new table, and I get a typical blank table at the bottom. Now, just like any normal table would be when the section is locked and we're just editing text, we've got our add row, delete row, move up and down sort of stuff, so we can fill those things in gradually and expand our table. But control of the columns, the names of them, the types of data that we've got, etc., needs to be done from our menu up here. So let's come to this, and we're going to do, let me just select a column first, and then we're going to do column, edit column. So the first column, its name is going to be date, perhaps, and we're going to give it a type. You see there's a similar sort of list of types, but a slightly smaller list. So for example, you can't inject variables into here, you can't have links, you obviously can't have pictures in a table as well. So we've got date there, and we could again set the format for that. So we've now got dates in our first column. When we click into it, we get a date picker, so we can pick our date. In the second column, we're going to make that something texty. So let's go column, edit column, and we're going to go name, and that's a text one, so that's fine like that. And then we're going to add a new column now to this table as well. So we're going to go table, column, add column, and our new column to the right, which we now click into and edit column. Edit column is going to be perhaps a Boolean, and we're going to say approved, like that, so we can fill it in like that. So we can build up our table to be whatever we want to be, and that's actually quite easy to do in a section which is unlocked. You can add tables like that. You can delete existing tables as well. This delete field, this delete link here is deleting that row. If you want to delete the whole table, then or a column out of that table, you have to come back up to here, of course. And we've got delete column. In fact, I don't think you can delete a whole table here. I think you have to be in the viewer application to delete a whole table. So so adding tables, that's good. And like I say, in this blank file where there is no lock on any of the sections or what you can do, you can range wild and free. We've made some quite substantial changes to this already, and we could take out most of the sections and just add in some completely new ones and make our own file up, all from the browser, all without any need to go and access the viewer app at all. So that makes it really flexible for creating new content and managing it live in the browser. Let's check that one in, and then let's go and have a look at a one now which is a locked file. So we'll have a look at a couple of examples. We've got the in fact not that one, let's come to this one, and this is the PID. It's currently checked out to me actually here already. As we talked about before, you can have files checked out to you and they're still sat there in the server. You can come back to them anytime you want to from any device and update them. So now we can tell immediately looking at this that this section is locked. It doesn't offer me the add new item at the bottom, so I can tell this is a locked section. I can come into here and therefore go to table and column and try to edit column, and it won't let me. It says this section is locked. Now this menu is always shown full. It isn't context sensitive depending on the lock status of the section. So it will always show you those things. So a really good guide, like I say, to stop being disappointed, is to look for the add item at the bottom. Those are the things that give you a clue as to whether the that the section is locked or not. So this file, I happen to know though, doesn't have an overall total file lock, so it will allow me to add sections. So I can do duplicate or append new sections, that's a duplicate section, or I could do a append section, which will give me a new blank one, and now we can see we've got our add new item. So here we can see we've got add new item in the duplicated one. The original one didn't have that. So any copied or newly created sections always are unlocked and available for edit, but the existing sections aren't. And that's really quite powerful because it means you can define the structure of the template you want people to work on. They're going to have to, those sections are there, they can't delete them, they're going to have to fill them in or ignore them, but that's going to be obvious when you look at the produced file. They can't take them away, and they can't customize those, but you can allow them to add their own extra things at the end, which they can then add extra relevant content to. And that's the most common mode that we're seeing people using piabx files, not the fully locked down, absolutely rigid template one where you can't even add your own new sections, but one where you've got a large portion of the content which is fixed template, and then the ability to extend that further should you wish. Okay, the final thing to say about this is when dealing with templates that you might have created in an older version of the application. So this is all, a lot of what we're talking about here is new piabx functionality. The launch version of piabx had many of the same features in it, but it didn't have the ability to control the password for the locking of sections or the overall document. It was automatically all locked. So every piabx template was a fixed rigid template. Because we don't want people to suddenly have their templates all opened up when they thought they were fixed. When you upgrade, when you check out an old style template in the new application, it automatically sets up a fully locked mode, all sections locked, no ability to add extra new sections type of password lock, and puts a default password onto that. So it will feel like that, but actually the file has been upgraded to a new type file. If you want to know the password, you need to contact us at support to ask for that, and we'll give you that so that you can then unlock and modify those sections live in the browser like this or in the viewer app if you want to. Okay, I hope you found that helpful. Like I say, this is the last session of the 6 looking at piabx files. There's a good few hours of content here working our way gradually through all of these issues, but it is quite a big and substantial area. If there's anything you've missed or you think we've missed or you'd like a further explanation on, then do just drop us a line and we'll be glad to help you out with that. Okay, thank you very much.